Great. Welcome in, everyone. John here, staff software engineer, 10 plus years of experience. I'm the lead maintainer of Latterly.io. It's a platform that'll help you land your first or next programming role and grow your social and professional networks. Hundreds of people on the Discord community tab. Come check us out. Today, I'm working on my personal blog. And what does that have to do with Latterly? Well, it will be a traffic source, basically. Other than that, not terribly related, but you may want to build a blog. In fact, it is a recommended project from Latterly for your portfolio. So blog article number 2, building a quality portfolio. Basically, it's like build a blog. And so this will be my blog, and you can use it as one model of what your blog might want to be from an architecture perspective. Okay, so this is open source, and we're using Next.js on Vercel. So let's get into it. I'm going to be working on this issue number 6 here. Make sure I have the latest main. I like to reset hard. You could pull, but sometimes I see issues with that. If you have items on your local main that you didn't realize, then you might get a conflict or an unexpected merge commit. Okay. So previously, I've written this analyze SQL script, and it scans this WP dump file. So my blog is an export of WordPress. So I abandoned WordPress. I did a previous stream on this. I abandoned WordPress and built my own blog. So I can be hosted for free on Vercel as opposed to the previous state where I was paying for hosting on GoDaddy. So I dumped the phpMyAdmin with all of my articles here. And then I created a script to read that file as a text file and extract the article titles. And so here is articles from Analyze SQL. You can see this is about 7,700 lines long, in contrast to the previous approach, which was about 1,000 lines long. So there's 7 times more articles. So I've solved the problem already. I've solved the problem that some articles are missing. Okay, so if you go to After Econ today, you can see that some articles are missing. You wouldn't know that, I guess, but I have many more articles than this. Now, I have extracted the SQL, and I've extracted their titles and their post dates, but I have not gotten their content, and I have not been able to build the actual pages. And so that's what we're doing today. Let me keep an eye on the chat here. Welcome in, everyone. Something wrong with TikTok. I wonder what's going on there. Okay. Yeah, if you're on TikTok, I can't see the TikTok chat. So you can go to my TikTok bio and go over to YouTube or Twitch, and I'll be able to see you there. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Okay. So how should I go from titles to content? Wersax, add me on Discord to join your live stream whenever you're streaming. Thanks. Thanks for being here from Kick. Welcome in. So what I'd like to do yeah, this is a good point. I had to manually adjust the date on some of these. So I'll do that. So this is the date that it was posted on WordPress, but it's actually older than that because it was imported from Blogger. So before I had my WordPress blog, I just used Google Blogger. And you can see that these articles go back to 2012. So I think I manually updated that date. That's fine. I can do that. I don't think I know the day of the month. I just know it was 09/2012. So I'll mark it as 01. I'll only do maybe 4 of these. The idea is to get like my earliest articles. These are some of my earliest articles to show the marker for when I started blogging. So this is my oldest blog article from 2010. And this would be 1209. We'll go up to that Bill Nye article. This was also 1209. Okay. Cloward Piven. And then this was, yeah. Wanted to make sure I put the right date in there. So we're doing all of these as 1209. When the truth is they were sometime that month, but whatever. I think this is good enough. Maybe I should alter the days to keep them in order. So because this one references an earlier article, so it doesn't make sense if they're posted the same day. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, or like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll call this the 6th. Call this the 5th, 4th, and 3rd. That's as accurate as I care to make it. It's not a big deal to me. So this will be feet, sum, original post dates. And I've pushed that on a main. Let me now make a feature branch, which I neglected to do. What issue number is this? 6? Okay. So we're going to render more articles. So I have all these articles. How can I get their content? Well, one thing that I can do, so I have the post IDs. I can split, basically I need to parse the origin text file. So let me open up this small version. It just loads quicker, but it shows kind of the data that I'm working with, although it's truncated. In the full version, there's actually like thousands of lines. But this is the data that I'm working with. And you can see they're bulk inserts in SQL. So this is a SQL command to like save multiple articles to a database at a time. And I don't want all these. Some of these are not articles at all. They're like WordPress entities, like here I had a political campaign aptitude test, which is not an article. It was just like a survey kind of that was on the website, and I don't care to maintain it. And then this says this test must be activated. So this is like a boilerplate post that comes with the WordPress boilerplate. And there's other like stuff like that I don't care about. So these are not articles, so I don't want every line. I want those lines specified by post ID. Okay. Why is there a red mark here? Oh, wow. Not sure how that got there. Thank goodness for linters. We can go ahead and stage a pull request now that there is some material committed. So I'll mark this as a draft. Okay. So I think I need to extend the script. The script will analyze SQL. Do I want to make it into a different script? So there's a JSON to Markdown. And this JSON to Markdown is based on the legacy script approach. SQL to JSON by chunks, SQL to JSON. Basically, I extracted the content two ways because I wasn't sure which way was going to work better. And I think I'd like to maintain that if someone else wants to come use the tools. It's a little confusing, isn't it? It's a little confusing. Maybe there should only be one way. I think Analyze SQL compares both files. Yeah. Okay, so Analyze, there really is one way. Analyze SQL is a second step. That's the way it has to be. And then it says whether there were any in the old way that were found that are missing in the new way. My answer was no, which is a green flag that I have them all. But a different person with a different shape in their SQL might find that one parsing approach works, the earlier parsing approach works better. So I think this approach is good. I think this approach is good. And let's use the, yeah, we'll want to get the file name. And the content. Do I have author? File name, content, author. Really, they're all from me, so I don't know that author is valuable. How many entries of, there might be like one where I had a guest article. So there's 109 articles, and there's 109 author entries, and there's 109 author entries that mention John. Okay, so we don't need that field. We don't need that field. Title and date, we have, want to get the content, this is the biggie. Status. I guess there will be some draft articles. Yeah. Oh, I have the status field. Okay. Status. But I don't see any of them. Okay. What about these drafts? I guess I want to include the draft articles as well. Okay, it seems like all of the draft cases, I actually have a published version. So there's 6 of these. If I look for status draft, here's one, and yet over here I do capture the article. Problems with the SAT score. Where else? Empirical examples of anarchy. So I have a published form. I'll just manually check these. Improving gender diversity, it's published, cool. Yeah, okay, so I'm not missing draft articles, good. Good. So I want to pull out the content, and I want to get a file name. That's it. So I'll enhance this existing script. And then JSON to Markdown, I will repoint this at articles from Analyze SQL. So we'll effectively build the new ones, but I need these fields. Title, date, author. Author can just be hard-coded as John Vanderveer. File path doesn't matter. It's redundant with file name. So file path is always just content / and then the file name. So here I'll use file name. And I'll get rid of file path. And so this is the interface I expect on my posts. Title, status, I don't even care. Where's, originally I was like, I'm not sure, I might want to mark the drafts or not make the drafts publicly visible, but I don't think I have any drafts in this latest version. Yeah, so if you use this approach, you might want to treat draft articles differently, but I just don't have any. So title, date, and author. Title, date. Really the title and the date, and I'm using post date. Okay, so that's a difference. Title and post date. All right, so we have this interface, and now all that's left is to extract the content and then print those articles. So this will be feature alter markdown builder to use new data source and interface. Feel free to tap the like on the video if you think this is interesting. Thanks so much for being here. Again, we are working on the After Econ blog, and we're trying to build more articles. Good. So I have analyze SQL. It's creating these. Someone that can tell me how to not make if nests. Yeah, you can usually break them out to be, actually you can always do a flat list of control flows instead of nesting them. You can always do that. So if I have if banana, and then I have a nested if strawberry, and then I'll console.log banana and strawberry, right? And then maybe there's like an else if apple. So this is like a nested if situation. You can always turn these into a flat list. You could use a switch case. I don't typically do that. But what you can do is you can say if banana and strawberry. So they are isomorphic. They're isomorphic. They're technically the same thing, but here now you have a flat group. And why might you want to do that? The reason is you might want to have logic that happens here and then logic that happens here. And so you're guarding and you're escaping out of the method early in those cases. And this makes debugging easier so that you don't have to debug into a nested control flow. You can just have flat console logs or breakpoints, checkpoints, save points. It's really a pretty good tactic. I recommend it. I do not like nested ifs. You can do cyclomatic complexity linting, so you can limit the number of if conditions in your functions. And if you do have a bunch of if conditions, that probably means you should break that function into multiple functions. And again, this makes testing easier, debugging easier, makes life easier. Good call out, Kroov. Thanks for being here from Kick. Yo, Kick is popping today. I don't know where YouTube's at. YouTube is falling off. YouTube is falling off, TikTok is glitching, and Kick is popping. So what is this doing over here? This is just like formatting. Yeah, this is just formatting. I guess when I hit the save button, my prettier on save kicked in. I used switch case before for some sort of a menu. Thought it was going to be better than having the math constantly somewhere. Yeah, switch cases have their place. I typically don't use them, but you know, technically it's more concise and idiomatic than having a bunch of sibling if control flows. You can just have one switch case. If you do want to refactor into functions, so you, like I said earlier, if there's a bunch of control flows, you might want to break out functions. I find that using a switch case is harder for that because you don't remove any of the boilerplate. So if I have a switch case and then I have some logic inside my case, if I change it into a function, I still have that case. And so even if I extract all of the logic, I still have a switch case in the main function. Whereas if I use the sibling control flows, I can move that entire sibling control flow, including the if statement itself. And so at the end of the day, I have a list of function calls. And so that best state is incompatible with the switch case. So the switch case could be better than the worst state, but it's also not compatible with the best state. So I typically just avoid it. Anyway, I guess that's an opinion or a preference. If you submit a PR with a switch case, I'm not going to reject it. It's like not a good reason to reject it. I just typically wouldn't write them. All right, I'll do one more thing on the switch case. Why write a switch case when you could have a map lookup, a function map lookup? You can do a one-line function map lookup where if you have a map or an object that has key, which is your case values, and then value, which is a function call, and then you can do a one line instead of an arbitrarily long switch case. You can do it one line. And then you think, well, an object with functions on it or a map with functions on it is really weird. And that's true. So the best primitive in JavaScript and Python for the equivalent thing is a module. It's a different script. It's a module of functions. So a module of functions really is just a map or an object of functions. And so again, that is isomorphic or equivalent to refactoring those if cases into their own discrete functions and just putting them in another, like a utility file or a service file. So I think that's super clean. I think that's like the best thing to do. And it just adds on to this idea of if switch cases aren't the best case, like ever, then why use them? I'm a newbie to coding. I'm happy I managed to code a PLC for temp control. Oh, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here. Well, newbies are welcome. Pros are welcome alike. You can check out latterly.io and join the Discord. Beginner friendly, pro friendly, all the above. Okay, so let's extract the content. I'll make a new cursor and I will bring in the small version of the dump file. Does this always work? Is it always 0? What is that last thing? That's comment count. Okay, so we can't always rely on a 0 there. But there should be a right paren, a comma, and then a line break. Let's see how that works. I'm more curious about what you're doing. This is not my main field. It's just a side field because work stuff. I don't feel like going back to coding again. I have other things to learn now. I'm just curious about what you're doing. So I am migrating from WordPress to my own blog. So here's my blog, afterecon.com. And it's missing a bunch of articles that I imported from WordPress. And so I changed the way that I parse out content from my SQL file dump. That's the database, the WordPress database. And here, let's see how this works. Ooh, I already made a mistake. Because I have annotated by hand, and it will override the by hand annotations. Articles from analyze SQL JSON. So I want to add this. And that's going to be a string. I dig the kick chat emojis. Okay, so it's going to read in, it looks like it got the gist. It's going to read in existing posts. And so what I should see is I should see none of these original post dates wiped out. So let's see if this works. And let me go over to my npm run split analyze. Okay, so wrote 1250 unique posts. And oh, this ignore bit. Yes, that's another annotation by hand, the ignore bit. Okay, well, it did what I told it to. Let me undo that though. So some of these things are not blog articles. Like in WordPress, there are pages that could be just like a page, like a category page for like all of the political articles or all of the economic articles. So those like index pages were listed here as blog articles, but they're not blog articles. And so I went through and I tagged a bunch of these as ignore. It's ignore Boolean. I think it's a Boolean, right? Yeah. You use returns. How do they work? I think they are a good shortcut when compared to something else that could be longer. Yeah, well, what programming language are you most familiar with? So return says that in my current function scope, I'm going to give the answer immediately to the parent scope. So it sort of jumps out of the current scope. Let's see if I can find an example. Yeah, so here it says lines for each. So it's going through that SQL file, looking at each line. And then what it says right here is, if this line is not a post, immediately just like skip the rest of the line. Does that make sense? And then it says, oh, if that was a post, but it wasn't published, immediately skip out. So I only want to migrate my published articles. Here, if there's no content found, that's what we're doing with this length 3. So if we try to split out the content and if we don't find it, let's immediately just like leave, because we're not going to publish an article with no content. Oh, ignore can actually be a string. Dang, I did 200 of these things. True, false, quote, or obsolete. True, false, quote, or obsolete. I forgot I did all those things. So there will be blog articles that I want to publish, but then I want it to have a note, which is like, hey, like this is out of date, or I changed my mind on something. I don't want to hide those articles, but I want to mark them as obsolete. So it just skips everything even below the return. Yeah, that's right. Whenever you return, it's just like skipping the rest of the logic inside of that function. Not inside of the whole program, but inside of that function, it will skip the rest of it. Keeps everything in order, no chaos. The notes you are making is looking like you know more than meets the eye. Yeah, I do. I've been coding for over 10 years. I try to explain what I'm doing as I go, but explaining everything I'm doing is hard. So I think you're right that if you're paying attention, you're going to learn more than just the things that I say. Okay, so we merge it. Good. This ends up being simpler. Well, actually, it's the equivalent number of lines. Look at that, 145 to 145. Like, it's exactly the same line count. That's kind of crazy. Okay, so let's do this, and I want to see none of the ignore attributes purged. But here I don't see content added. Articles from ignore. I don't see any. Okay. Okay, good. So in this article, good, I'm finding that content. All right, it looks like I got the content. Something else I want to do here is not update the title. So how are they being merged? We should be merging on the post ID. What is that thingy that talks with you? That is the cursor composer. So it's an AI assistant. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to temporarily comment the content. So I'm going to temporarily force the content to be empty. Actually, I'm just not going to include it at all. I'm going to temporarily comment out the content so that I can see if the titles are getting changed. That's why I'm doing that. Good, and we see 0 title changes, don't we? So in a preview, you may have caught it a minute ago. It changed a non-grammatical apostrophe to a grammatical apostrophe, Obama's. So this is a non-grammatical apostrophe, where in the SQL database, it's a grammatical apostrophe. And stuff like that creates HTML encoding issues. So I fixed this by hand, but then it was overriding that title. So we updated the script not to override the title if there's a title that already exists. And it worked. So now I should be able to trust that it's just appending the content. Cool. And this is really cool. Wrote 1250 posts, preserved ignore field for 236, added content for 1022. So it seems to have found content in basically every case. I mean, right? I have it seems to have even overdetermined the content so that even some of the ones I want to ignore, it found content. Like this one, for example, the Watu 3, it found content, but I don't want to post it. Although, yeah, here's a picture. Okay, fine, content is empty. There could be a few cases. I'll need to, after the articles are published, I'll need to go check to make sure there aren't any empty ones. Oh, no, actually we can do that by script here. Yeah, that'll be the last thing we do. Bruh, I want that thing when creating circuits. It's just that it could be wrong. Yeah. Yeah, and it has been wrong even in today's stream. I think we've seen it wrong a couple times. You got to work with it. Don't just let it do everything. "41 posts have no content and are not ignored." So private versus public charity would be an example. Let's go find this. Yeah. And yet, if we look inside of the SQL dump, I bet we're going to find some content. So it looks like a parsing problem, doesn't it? Oh no, that's a JPEG. So it's actually not an article. So it should be ignored. That's a case that should be ignored. Awesome. I need to reconcile these 41 posts. I either need to find their content or ignore them. Girl studying is probably like an image. Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to do that in the scope of this stream. So that'll do it for today's stream. Thanks so much for being here. See you next time. See you.